Pencil Kings, Pencil Kings, Pencil Kings, Pencil Kings, Pencil Kings.
It's one of the coolest things about this career is that you can live all over the place, like all over the world, if you wanted.
It's time once again for the Pencil Kings podcast. Thanks for tuning in. I'm your host, Mitch Bowler, and today the show notes are going to be available at pencilkings.com/Kelly Christophers. And I'm excited to talk to Kelly today because I feel like she has gone on a similar path. I mean, we don't do the same type of art, but she went from where she's from and has kind of trotted the globe a little bit. And now she's in Vancouver, Canada, where we're catching up with her. So I'm interested to hear how she made the transition from country to country and kind of bridge the gap, because it's a lot easier, I think, to get into the industry or get the job that you want when it's kind of sitting on your doorstep. It's a lot harder when it's across an ocean. So welcome to the call, Kelly. How are you doing today?
I'm great, thank you. How are you?
Good. It's been raining today. I went and saw Minions, which I didn't know what to think, the sort of the follow-up to Despicable Me, and I was pleasantly surprised. You know, these characters that don't really talk, I think they've got like, I don't know, 10 words of vocabulary that are in English, and it was still really entertaining. So yeah, that's what I did today, and it was a pretty good day, and I enjoyed watching the movie.
I'm curious to see it.
Yeah, I would say it's definitely worth seeing. So to start off, why don't you tell people just I've been getting artists to tell people the 10-second version, just a condensed version of what you do. And I know on your website it says you're a lighting TD, but what does a lighting TD do, and where are you originally from? Well,
actually, I started as an animator, you know, as most of us do, but I ended up doing lighting. So, I mean, that's what I got into starting from the bottom. It was not really a career that I expected to be in, but something that I quite enjoy now that I'm into it. And basically, it's just taking everything that is made for a film down the pipeline, you know, all of the modeling and texturing and animation. Everyone has put together a scene, you know, a shot for you to do. And I take that and kind of try and make it fit into the real world, or to make it feel like it is a real world, you know, lighting it, rendering out the images that you see on screen. It's both an artistic and technical job, I think. A lot of art and creativity going into it, but at the same time, quite technical. A lot of computery stuff, reading logs, getting to know software through and through, I think, debugging things that go wrong. Yeah. But it's quite a stimulating job, I think. Something that's quite challenging, but at the same time, very artistic. And kind of that's why my background is academic and artistic at the same time. So I think it suits.
And Kelly, you're now in Canada, but you're not originally from Canada, are you?
No, I'm from South Africa.
All right. So that's where I want to start, because I've got a good friend who's in South Africa, and he said that there's quite a lot of commercial work going on, you know, car commercials, product commercials, as far as being a visual effects artist or a 3D artist or an animator. But there's not a whole lot going on with film. I'm sure there's some things going on, but you can't really compare it to what's happening in other places. So could you tell us a little bit about what it was like going to school in South Africa and then making the decision that you were going to leave? Or how did you approach that? Did you start sending out reels? I'm really curious to find out and ask this question on behalf of people who are in a location where there's not a whole lot of local opportunity for the thing that they want to do. So maybe they can get some inspiration and some insight about what you did to make that jump.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, it is pretty traditional country, as I was saying to you earlier. It not a lot of opportunities for art careers, and your friend was right. It's a lot of commercial stuff. It's a lot of adverts, and we're really good at that stuff. And there's a lot of opportunity for that in advertising, but it's not something that I was keen to get into when I was young. I decided when I was 12 I was going to be an animator, and I pretty much just did everything that I studied, everything that I did was geared towards getting into the animation industry. But I started at a small company, an internship called Bugbox, and we did a lot of advertising, but they were trying to do cartoons on the side, which I got involved in. But other than that, there wasn't much in terms of film. And I was quite happy to start building my way from there with the idea that I'd probably have to leave in the future to get into the film industry. But it just so happened at the time my family was going to immigrate to New Zealand, and they had gone ahead of me, and I was remaining behind in South Africa trying to finish my master's degree in art and animation. And eventually I followed them over. But being such a junior, I was trying to get into Weta Digital at the time, and I didn't have enough experience, obviously. I had done an internship for 6 months. So instead, what I did was I tried to get in from the bottom, and I applied as a runner. And that's not a very artistic job. You're helping the artists out. You are delivering their post and making coffee. But the important part for me was that allowed me to make connections with people. And I got to know all the artists personally, and they got to know what I wanted to do and where I wanted to be. So eventually, when Weta decided that they were going to open a training program as an assistant technical director, they asked me if I wanted the job because they prefer to hire people that they know personally than looking through a whole lot of CVs online. So that worked well for me. I mean, they gave me a shot, which I really appreciate. It was the biggest opportunity I ever had. And once I got into that, it was just all uphill from there. I was allowed to, prove myself or learn a lot of stuff that I didn't know studying. And I got promoted very slowly through the years, but eventually made it to a lighting technical director, which is, That's
really cool. And I remember I met someone when I was living overseas, and he was from New Zealand. He's like, man, you should just come here and hang out, because when they ramp up for a show, they really ramp up. And if you're here local, you've got a good chance of getting in. And I really, this is one of the sort of the secrets that we've uncovered on this podcast time and time again, is people going to where the opportunities are. Or, New Zealand's sort of a special case that you can't really drive there from anywhere. You're either there or you aren't. But, sometimes there's an opportunity that's, 4, 5, 6, 10 hours drive away. And if you can go and show up for that interview in person instead of doing it via the phone and, sleep in your car or whatever, whatever hardship that you have to do, that is actually appreciated. People like that.
It goes a long way.
It just shows it how hungry you are. And I think it's really cool that you started off as an assistant technical director, because once you add that technical title to whatever you're doing, all of a sudden you're in a very small pool of people and you're in very high demand. And the more that you develop your skills, it's just there's never enough technical art people, I think. What do you think about that?
Oh, actually, it's something that I didn't know. When you're studying animation, and I'm not sure if it's true overseas where there's a lot of film, but in South Africa especially, animation is a word that's synonymous with doing all film. I don't think a lot of students studying realize all the steps that are involved in getting a shot out, all the departments that are there, and I didn't know myself. I was going to go be an animator, and I was determined that that's what I was going to be. And then I accidentally became a lighting technical director, which I didn't expect, and I didn't know anything about the job. But once I had learned what it involved, I really liked it. And I started to learn that because everybody knows what animator is, that's something that everybody tries to be. But jobs like this, which are still involved in the same process, but just with a different title, there's a lot more opportunity in places like that because there's not a lot of people going for these jobs. I guess my theory is maybe not as many students know about this career path. I'm not even sure.
Yeah, I think there's that, as well as specifically with lighting. I don't know where you would go to study that, to be honest. Like, I think you could study photography and learn a lot, and study video, like actual filmmaking, and learn a lot about how the camera interprets things and how it's displayed on screen. And but basically, you're the one that makes everything look real at the end, because often I'm sure you're handed things and you're like, this sort of looks real, but once you're done with it, then it's like, okay, this blends in with everything else in the scene. And I remember when I was working in visual effects, that was the department that I wanted to get into, because those were the most badass artists were the lighting guys, because they knew what real things look like. And, when you're doing films, it's often, unless you're doing some kind of a cartoon or stylized thing, it's often about how real can you get things to look. And we've definitely come a long way in the last 15 years in the look of film. But I really admire those people. And I still feel like, even though I spent time in that department, I didn't really get it. So what would you recommend? So let's just say that students don't know that there's a thing called the lighting technical director, or that maybe they're not even aware that there's a lighting department. They think that, they're doing their student work and they're modeling and then they're animating and they're rendering things out and they're setting up the lighting, but it's actually like a full-time specific discipline where you focus in on that lighting. And how did you learn this, or what would you recommend to people if they wanted to improve their lighting?
Wow, that's a tough one, actually, because I think a lot of the time when you start in the industry, you start as a generalist almost. I think a lot of people are used to doing everything from modeling all the way through to rendering. But yeah, as you say, it's a full-time job. I'm not even sure how you would go about learning it as a student, because I myself had no idea, and everything I learned was in the industry. But I would go with photography. I think some of the best lighters I've ever met they're very big into photography, and they understand real world lighting. They understand how things are interacting with each other, and how light interacts with the world. And I mean, they even understand how to create certain moods with their lighting, and it translates into the digital area too. A lot of the renders that they're using around the world now kind of try to emulate real world lighting too. So the same way that you would set up lights on a set is the same thing you would do on a computer. And I'm not even sure where you'd learn that, but I guess there's a lot of theory behind lighting in general for, film. Physical lighting is probably where you would start. And I kind of wish I had that background, because it's more of a challenge for me now, coming from an animation background and then having to be thrown into the deep end and learn about lighting as I go in film. So, I mean, I think that background would help a lot, just, going the traditional route and then translating that into more digital art. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And cracking open those lighting books, I'm sure they exist out there. Like if you go to Amazon, you look in specialty textbooks or something, I'm sure there's some really crazy things that has been written over time, but I can't see them being the most exciting books to read.
Probably not. I've never read one, but I do know that they exist. I've seen them around, and I've considered trying to get some to better myself, actually.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about what it was like to work at Weta? We've never had anybody on the podcast who's worked at Weta. And just to fill you in, if you're listening to this and you don't know who Weta Digital is, if you've seen Lord of the Rings, they're the studio that did, I think, all of the special effects, correct? There was nobody else, or was it?
I think they did all of it, yeah.
Yeah, so Lord of the Rings, and they've done a bunch of other big films, but they're, the top one or top two studios for doing visual effects in the world, especially on a large scale. And they're based in New Zealand. So because of that, I feel like there's a little bit of secrecy that people don't know what they're all about or what it's like to work there. And I'm really curious. So for you being on the inside, what was it like? Was it as amazing as I think it would be? Or was it more of like, I guess, I say normal, but for somebody who's never worked in a visual effects office, normal doesn't mean a whole lot. So why don't you just tell us a little bit from your point of view what it was like, and then I can have some follow-up questions after that.
I think that people's idea of studios are, I guess they imagine, movie studios. There's something quite glamorous and fancy about it, but the culture in New Zealand in general is quite a laid-back, chilled-out country, and I think Weta emulates that. They're quite a relaxed kind of people. It made a really nice atmosphere because the people that you work with are quite happy and laid back, and they're very serious about their work. I mean, all of them have traveled from all over the world to come work at this one company, and I got to know so many people from the globe. The industry seems quite small after that. But, it's not quite what you expect, I think. It's just, a couple of buildings where a lot of very passionate people just get together and they make a film. And I think everybody there has a great history. Joe Lettieri, who owns the company, he started off small. I think he was an ATD also. Everyone's got their history, and everybody is trying to help each other. And they're the reason that I even had this opportunity, and they grew me into what I am now. So without them, I wouldn't have been here. And they're so keen to just help you get where you need to go. I mean, you make the right friends, or the right people, and they can help you. It's definitely worth trying it out if you ever can.
And what was it like working there? Were you guys all busy all the time? I know for us, when the closer that the film was to being released, there was always sort of this death crunch, or I think in the video game industry they call it the death march, where everyone is working insane hours because 80% of the shot comes together in the last 20% of the time that's allotted for that shot. So it's just everything is in sort of this half-finished state until right at the end, and it all somehow magically comes together. Hopefully it looks good in the end. But it did always actually look really good. But it was really intense. There was a stint where I remember it was 3 months and I had taken 1 day off because there's just that much stuff to do for us.
Yeah, that's definitely, I think that's the industry in general, isn't it? It's you got about a year maybe on average to work on a film. Sometimes it's a lot less, and most of that visual effects only starts going in the last 4 or 5 months, maybe 6, like if you get started really early. But it's definitely a crunch time about 3 months before, and it turns into sometimes I've worked 95-hour weeks and you're working 7 days a week, and it can get kind of crazy and pretty intense. But the funny thing is that everybody in the same situation as you, we all love what we're doing, and it never seems to lower the morale. It's just really a life that everyone got used to, I guess. So it's what you expect as a VFX artist. I think you're going to go through these waves of intense busyness, and then a few months where there's not that much to do and you're just a regular person.
That's true. There is that ebb and flow. So you do kind of get your life back, or it's time to do a bunch of tests or whatever.
Yeah.
But that's interesting that you said that the morale doesn't drop at all, because my experience was the morale always did take a huge hit during those times. And
I think it's dependent. It's dependent on the project, I think. We've had really difficult projects with great people, and it's gone really amazingly. And then there's some very difficult projects, and it's inevitable. Sometimes things get hard, for sure. But then, I mean, it doesn't stop anybody, working hard or coming back.
All right, well, let's change gears a little bit here. And you've recently moved to Vancouver, Canada, an amazing city. I lived there for I think about 2 years total time. The winters though were killer. I couldn't do the winters in Vancouver, but the summers are amazing. And I would put Vancouver up as, one of the top cities in the world to live in. But what made you want to change? Because it feels like you were at a great studio. You have a great position. I think, as far as I'm concerned, New Zealand is an amazing place to live. What prompted you to switch it up?
Well, actually, I really loved being where I was. The choice is more of a growth thing, I started at Weta, so it's like a slow incline to where I was getting. But everybody knows that when you jump to other studios, you kind of can kind of grow your career very quickly. And I intend on going back at some point. I made really great connections, and they told me I'm welcome back, So it's just a growth choice to come try something new and learn some new stuff. I also have a partner that's with me, and a lot of it was for him too. He needed to kind of take a step forward in his career, and Vancouver seemed like the place to be. I heard there's something like 14 VFX studios here, and lots of opportunity to get involved in film if that's where you were going. And
cool.
It's one of the coolest things about this career is that you can live all over the place, like all over the world, if you wanted.
Yeah, definitely. Now, I'm looking at your website here, and I see that you have a lot of other things going on. And we just talked about this idea of the crunch or the death march or whatever you want to call it. Basically, you're putting in a lot of time working on your project, but then it seems like you still have time for doing other things, like creating actual physical models. I saw some X-Wings up on your website and sketches and other things. How do you manage to juggle all this? Is it just that during the downtime when the crunches are over, then you have time for that, or you set aside a little time here and there to work on it? How do you juggle that? Because I feel like for a lot of people, myself included, that often when you're wrapped up in something, it's hard to switch gears and go back to that creative spot where you're doing things maybe not with any set outcome. You're just doing it for the pure enjoyment of doing it, of creating and doing something that you love and that you're passionate about.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of downtime, I guess. Also, I feel that Weta at the time, they were trying to solve that problem of working 100-hour weeks, and they got pretty good at it by the end, I think. So my crunch times were going down from 95-hour weeks to like 60-hour weeks. So towards the end, I got a lot more time. And also, since I was little, I've always loved to do all kinds of art. I love building things. I love drawing things. I love just taking on some hobby of the week. And I kind of stopped doing it while I was studying. And I moved to New Zealand and met a whole lot of people who were very creatively minded, and they were very passionate about creating art, also art that's not within the film industry. So I got involved with a lot of friends who kind of inspired me and encouraged me to keep doing that. So we would often, as a group, get together and set some time aside just to do some art, just to build. Everything that you see there is a group thing. So the X-Wings were a group project, and you've seen some drawings. We've got this one little project that we do. It's a lot of fun. It's about learning how to draw. We draw ourselves in a specific art style every week. We choose a different artist and a different style every week, and you just draw a self-portrait within that style. And we've got like 10 people doing it, and every week we just band together, we do our art, and then we we show each other, I guess. We just post it up. And you get to see
are you meeting in person, or are you meeting virtually, or is it just like an email? Somebody initiates the email and said, hey, this week it's time to do another portrait, pick any style you want and I'll talk to you on Friday.
Well, the models were in person, but the drawings, they used to be in person, I guess, when I was in New Zealand, but now we can't do that because I've moved overseas. But So now it is one person. We've got like a leader and he chooses a topic every week and he says, hey, this is what we're going to do. This is the artist. This is what they do. And then he puts up examples and we kind of choose a theme. Like everyone is waiting outside of a rock concert and then you draw yourself waiting outside of a rock concert in the style provided. And then we just share our stuff at the end, all posted back to him and he puts it together. And we get to see everyone's work and it's so much fun. Everyone's growing as an artist and we're getting
really
better.
Cool.
It's a lot of fun.
And I feel like it's such a cool exercise because it might take the edge off things a little bit because you're like, hey, this is a style I know nothing about. Oh, well, I'm just going to give it a shot. This is going to be fun. Instead of trying to approach it from this like, okay, I'm going to really nail this and this is going to be like a perfect technical execution. And you're just like, no, that doesn't exist. That's not the point of this exercise. Yeah,
that's exactly it. You're breaking out of your comfort zone. Everyone's got a certain style that you fall into, and it's about challenging that and starting to learn about what other people can do or what you can take from other styles, I think. And it's kind of a great way to learn how to do art because I myself have improved tenfold since I started doing it. I would suggest anyone trying to kind of improve their skill do this little project. It's cool.
Yeah, I love that. I'm gonna steal that and I'll follow up with you so I can give credit to whoever the group or the ring, we'll call them the ringleader
sure.
is for this because I think it's really cool and I think it's something that inside the community that people would love to do because they're always wondering about different styles and how to find your style, and this is like, no, don't worry about that, just here's a style, do this, see what you learn along the way, and then we'll move on to something next week and see what you learn doing that. And there's nothing will say what you will learn until you actually do the exercise. And then along the way, you're like, oh, wow, I learned this new way of doing line work that I really like it. I'm going to start doing this with my normal work or whatever it is that you uncover along the way. It's like deciphering a secret riddle by looking at somebody's style and trying to break it down and then emulate it yourself. It's very cool.
It is. It's actually quite a challenge. Some of them come easy to you, but then there are some that are you have to study it properly. Yeah,
I saw one on your website. Which one do you think was the most difficult of the examples that you have on your website? I saw there's one. If I was just to look at them, I would say the pixel art one, the sort of Street Fighter-esque.
Oh
one.
Yes, but that one was more challenging than you'd think.
Yeah, I know. I've tried to do pixel art. Like that's one of the first things that I did. And it's like, wow, why won't this do what I want? Why doesn't this look good enough? And then you kind of have to just let that go and be like, all right, this, it is what it is, and you do the best that you can. But there's extreme technical limitations that you got to play within that sandbox. And it's a creative exercise in itself.
Exactly. It's really going to change the way that you draw, I think. I mean, I don't think I was really great at illustration before I started doing these exercises. And I've never really found a style of my own either. I didn't know what my style was. And this has helped me kind of gather a whole lot. It kind of makes like a visual library in your head, and you can pull what you like and what you don't like or what you feel is right, and then you put that down and it becomes your style. Like, it's a lot of referencing, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And how I got to ask more questions about this because I'm really curious and I think it's so cool. So when you were meeting up in person, how did you go about that? Was it just meet at a coffee shop? We're going to go to Starbucks this week, and then you do that, or would you go to somebody's house and somebody's made a potluck kind of everybody's sharing food and you're just chatting and while you're working on your stuff, or did you go do like a drink and draw sort of thing where you're at a pub? How did you guys do it?
We would mostly do it at someone's house. Someone would host and we would just eat and play soundtracks and just talk and help each other with. That was especially for the modeling stuff. We would, get together and just, I don't know, socialize. It was kind of a cool social thing to do, that's out of the norm, I guess. We would even have an activity called Drunk, which is you get together and you have a lot of drinks and you ease up and you pull out words out of a bottle, that will be like a blue wizard, and then everyone would just draw whatever comes up, and you've got something like 5 minutes to do it. And come up with really funny stuff because everyone's loosening up, and you're letting your creative juices flow, and it's just a fun artistic activity that's also social. It's something that's not only improving your art, but it's a lot of fun, something different to the norm.
Yeah, I like that aspect, and I think that with where we're at with technology and everything, that we're more connected, but we're also less connected in that personal way. And I think taking the initiative to organize something where you're gonna have a group of friends and say, hey, we're meeting up this week, this is our weekly thing. Some people might like to go out for dinners, or they might go to a club or to a bar or something, but that's not us. This is the thing that we like to do, and this is one of the things that we like to do. And I think it's so cool because for me, I'm often fighting with the whole isolation thing. You work at home, you're connected to all these people online, but there's no human connection, and it's so different when you get to meet somebody in person. And so I would encourage anybody who's listening, if you want to try this, it's really easy to do what Kelly's been telling us. Like, hey, do you have some creative friends? No? Then put up a thing on Facebook and said, hey, I'm a little bit weird. I'm willing to meet strangers for a creative experiment where we're going to draw in a different style. If you're interested, I'm going to be at Starbucks. Don't invite strangers to your house. I would advise that. But go meet at Starbucks for the first time and make some new friends. Or there might be like a meetup group at meetup.com in your area where you could go and just meet some people. And if they seem all right, then you could kick something off with that. And it's really easy. I think it's really cool.
I think like a lot of people are no strangers to life drawing classes, for example. It's absolutely no different to that. You all meet up and you draw the same thing, or you pick a topic. This sounds so much more fun than life drawing, though, to me. Life drawing is when you get caught up again in that sort of technical execution of trying to be a quote unquote artist, and there's all this self-deprecation. And I love this because it just lifts that barrier. Sort of like, hey, here's a style that you've never drawn before. Enjoy it. Exactly. And you're not gonna, you can't do much with it, but you'll just do your best, and you'll enjoy the company of your friends and just doing something for yourself. I think that's pretty much it for time for this episode. We like to keep things short and sweet. Do you have anything left to say, Kelly, to people that, we've covered a bunch of topics. I feel like we've just touched on a bunch of different things about, traveling, going to different places to find opportunities, networking to create opportunities for yourself, being social and creating fun activities with your art where you can meet up with other people and push yourself in fun and creative ways. Is there anything else that you'd like to say before we sign off for this? Well, I guess in the spirit of the theme here, I would just encourage everyone not to be discouraged, I guess. You can come from any background, I think. Anything is, possible. As long as you get to know a lot of people, just meet people in your situation, meet people that are artistic, get to know everybody. And you know what, you'll probably find yourself with a lot more opportunities than you expected, as in my case. So yeah, definitely. I just want people to know that.
That's great advice. All right, we are going to have show notes for this again at pencilkings.com/Kelly-Christophers. That's KELLY-CHRISTOPHERS. And Kelly, where can people find you on the online? Where's the best place for that?
I have a website at kellychristophers.com. That's pretty much all I have.
Cool.
That's got my email on there and stuff. So if people want to get hold of me, they can do that.
Oh, and you've got blog posts that go back to 2003. I didn't see that. And we're just going to take one last second to look what you're writing about in 2003. Back in the day.
Was that my university stuff?
Yeah, there's a lion and like a violin and a dragon.
That's when I just used to pick up random things at home, and I felt like drawing one day, and then I would do it. Some of them are projects from school, so that's way back.
Cool. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for being on the Pencil Kings podcast. That's it for us, and I'll see you guys next Wednesday for the next episode. Take care.
Demands patience, skill, years of practice.
Ah, you talk like a fool. I would trade a century of practice for an ounce of inspiration.